That morning, I was going to a place called Top of the World, which is out in the hills of Livermore, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, 4 or 5 miles from any civilization. It was the middle of winter, absolutely freezing out there. I was hearing the occasional mooing of a cow, and then out of nowhere, I hear a cat. Do you hear it?
Kitty, you okay, baby? You're so far away from everyone. Oh, bud.
As the cat started coming closer, I noticed that its whole eye was abscessed and pink and disgusting looking, and it wasn't using its back leg at all. It looked really, really skinny, looked really dirty too, probably had fleas, but also was running around my legs, trying to rub up on me.
So he doesn't look great. What the do we do?
We already had 2 cats at the time, and I didn't want a 3rd cat. The thought did cross my mind of, what if I just leave and kind of forget about it? I don't know if I want to take on this responsibility. If I didn't do something to help out this cat, it was gonna die out there, almost certainly. It seemed like it was on the brink of death, so I called my girlfriend.
So I guess I've had cats pretty much my whole life.
Do you remember your first cat's name?
Its name was Willie. I had just started a new job, so I was going through a lot of the onboarding process. I was just sitting there working away, and I got a phone call from John. And he basically was like, hey, I found this cat out here, not using its leg. Looked like its eye was missing. So I immediately told him to bring the cat home, and we'd figure out what we would do next.
When I got home, I go around to my passenger side of the car, and I went to finally grab her and pick her up and bring her inside. As I picked her up, my hand kind of flew up because I wasn't expecting her to be so light.
Maybe about 10 minutes later, John opens the door, and I rush over there to see what the cat looked like. And from the moment I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do anything that we can to help this cat. We put her in the bathroom where I'd kind of made a little makeshift litter box. So we started feeding her a little bit by little bit, and she was just scarfing it down mouthful by mouthful, and she was doing little muffins on the ground. So I remember trying to debate what we should do. Should we try and take her to a vet?
But I think it was no question that we didn't want to just take that cat in and start paying for all its medical stuff.
So I finally got a hold of a shelter that said yeah, we could bring her in and pretty much give the cat over to them. And they would have a vet come in and look at her and kind of assess her injuries. So we decided to take her to the shelter and see what they might be able to do for her.
He's not in our system. If you did, then give us proof of that and we will
I remember having kind of mixed feelings when we left the shelter. I was still kind of trying to brainstorm in my mind, what can we do to help this cat? What needs to be done?
What was running through my mind at the time was the shelter's going to be able to do what they need to do, and that cat will have a happy life in someone's home. Melissa was sitting at her desk, and we got a call from the shelter.
The notes that I have here from the doctor.
They said that her eye was abscessed and that she was gonna need surgery right away.
That back leg that she was not using was bad enough to where they were going to have to amputate the leg.
And they pretty much assessed at the time that like her injuries were too great for them to be able to financially fund those. They told us that if she stayed at the shelter, unfortunately, they were going to have to put her down. It just didn't seem fair to me that they were going to put this cat down that had like such a sweet and loving attitude.
It was a much bigger question in my mind of whether this cat should be put down or not.
With the amount of injuries that she had, it was like at least thousands of dollars to potentially have surgeries and other medical costs. So I understand like why they had to make that decision. John and I had several conversations about how we wanted to handle the situation, but we ended up deciding that we were going to adopt the cat from the shelter. The timing of it was really terrible. We were gonna have Christmas coming up in a couple of days. We were supposed to leave on a vacation. I remember even like debating, like, should I stay home from the vacation and just like take care of the cat? Like, what should we do?
Alyssa's parents were kind enough to help out with that for the week that we were gone.
And then my brother and his girlfriend offered to financially pitch in and be able to help with medical costs.
It was over a number of months that she was slowly getting better. We were really worried about her possibly having to lose the leg. And I think that was kind of like worst case scenario. Not only super expensive, but quality of life after is probably not as good. What our vet had told us after doing an x-ray was that her hip was actually kind of shattered into a dozen pieces or something like that.
Okay. That's what the radiologist is for.
Got it. She might need a hip surgery. It's possible she needs amputation, but it's also possible that she doesn't need anything. So the last vet visit that we had with her was for the prognosis for the leg. But what they ended up telling us was that they looked at her hip, they looked at her leg, they kind of tested things out, and they said that she wasn't going to need any additional surgery.
Originally, John really wanted to name her Odin.
But I think there's only kind of one name that made sense for her. I think it goes back to what initially brought us together was
Cinnamon coffee cake muffins.
that I fed her and lured her into the car with, and the thing that ultimately kind of kept her alive. So we named her Muffin.